This guy wasn't writing me as a tough guy. He was actually writing me as a distraught father. He said, my daughter was the top Christian student in her high school class. My daughter, this man said, wanted to go to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to win the Campus for Christ. Into her first semester, I got a phone call from her, and her words devastated me. She said, Dad, I don't believe in God anymore. We don't teach logic in public school anymore. We should. Yep. Instead of teaching kids how to think, we're teaching them what to feel. And that's dangerous, because if you live your life by feelings without reason, you're going to wind up in a very dark place.
There's physical evidence, there's historic evidence, and why somebody's going to lie to look themselves bad if it was not true. Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Pablo. Thanks for watching this DC podcast, and do us a favor, like this video, subscribe, hit the notification button, and we're gonna go straight to the point. We have this video from Frank Turek. If you don't know Frank Turek, he is from he's the CEO of Cross Exam, this amazing podcast who is dedicated to explain the Bible and have the facts about historic facts about the Bible. I'm a fan of his. He has a very well done explanation of almost every single thing that people come up with, any questions and stuff like that. So we're just gonna go straight to the video, and I hope you guys like it, enjoy it. If you guys want to see the video, it's an hour video. It's an amazing video. I'm just gonna go to my timestamps, unfortunately, so we can actually get to the point. And at the end, please stay at the end. We're gonna explain a little bit more, unpack it. We'll go from there. All right.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to go back to an email that I got several years ago from a United States Marine. Marine mating call, ladies and gentlemen. This guy wasn't writing me as a tough guy. He was actually writing me as a distraught father. He said, my daughter was the top Christian student in her high school class. She led several youth groups. She won several scholarships from Christian organizations to go to college. She could take them to any college she wanted to. And so my daughter, this man said, wanted to go to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to win the Campus for Christ, and it needs to be one for Christ. In any event, he said, 4 weeks into her first semester, I got a phone call from her, and her words devastated me. She said, Dad, I don't believe in God anymore. I don't believe in God anymore. What? He said, I got in my car. I drove 4 hours down to Chapel Hill that weekend. I sat down with her, and I got nowhere with her. What do you mean you don't believe in God anymore? What happened? She said, well, we have this atheist professor who teaches the New Testament class, and he said, we don't even know who wrote the Gospels, and the Bible has errors in it, so Dad, I'm an atheist now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do you think that this young girl, by the way, that's not her, do you think that this young girl in 4 weeks investigated all the evidence for and against Christianity and made a rational decision it was false? No, you probably couldn't even do that in 4 weeks. What happened instead? What happened is she had gone off to the college unarmed. She didn't know why Christianity was true. And as soon as she heard what seemed to be reasons it wasn't true, she decided she was just going to walk out on Christianity. And why wouldn't you? When you go to college, you don't want to do everything your parents said. You don't want to have the perceived moral restraints of Christianity on you. You want to do your own thing, which is one reason why we go to colleges through our ministry and we present evidence that Christianity is true. It's from a book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And we always set up a microphone for Q&A. Here is a picture from an event we had at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and they love the Bible there about as much as the University of California at Berkeley does. And whenever an unbeliever gets up to the microphone and expresses any hostility at all, I'll normally stop and ask the unbeliever a question. And I recommend you ask unbelievers this question. Here's the question.
I want you guys to listen the expression in the questions that you can actually come up with and also combat them with the truth. And that's how Frank is. I love Frank and how he actually explains the Bible, explains everything. The problem with this is we are seeing this, and I'm just going to go into this part. We are seeing this type of behavior in our churches more and more. Why? Because we have not very concrete evidence of how the Bible was made, when the Bible was made, and we don't have this deep stories of Christianity because we have, Noah's Ark, we have the story of David and Goliath, and, he was a legend, blah, blah, blah. Yet we don't explain the main purpose of how God saved his people, and now how he saved the entire world through Jesus Christ. And now, how can we know that Jesus was alive, and how can we know that Jesus was real? It's because we have the physical evidence. We have a faith, but at the same time, our faith has to be proven by the facts and by physical evidence. So we have physical evidence for all this stuff. And for all my friends out there, I want to make sure you guys understand, if you have kids, you have to come up with the truth. And the truth is, we have the evidence, not only the physical evidence, but we have also the spirit of the Lord, which is an evidence of his presence in us. So let's just keep on going.
Question. If Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? I've had atheists stand at that microphone in front of hundreds of people and say, no. No. Wait, I thought you claimed to be reasonable. I thought you claimed to be rational. How is it reasonable you wouldn't believe something that was true? Well, it has nothing to do with reason. It's not a head problem, it's a heart problem. They don't want it to be true. They don't want there to be a God. Why? Because they want to be God over their own lives. They're not on a truth quest, they're on a happiness quest. And they're just going to believe whatever they think is going to make them happy. Now here's the problem. You can make yourself happy over the short term, doing a lot of fun, but ultimately selfish and sinful things. Yet over the long term, it's a disaster. And everyone in this room over 40 knows what I'm talking about, because many of us have tried it ourselves, right? If you want contentment, you got to go straight through truth, and Jesus is the truth. But a lot of people want to try it themselves. Look, ladies and gentlemen, if you just live for yourself all the time, if you just become a me monster, and it's all about you all the time, how long are your relationships going to last? Who's going to put up with that? And if somebody does, you're probably not going to have a very fruitful relationship. No, if you live for you all the time, you're ultimately going to wind up divorced, addicted, broken, alone, and probably prematurely dead. You can't just follow your whims or your desires all the time. And we're going to get into it a little bit today, because there are a lot of lies out there that your kids want to believe. In fact, we're going to talk about 3 lies that your kids want to believe. And this is especially appropriate on Father's Day, because as we'll see at the end of this, fathers have a disproportionate amount of influence over what their kids believe and do. Now, let me preface this by saying, I'm not saying that just because you teach your kids the truth about Christianity that they're necessarily going to wind up to be Christians. They still might walk away. But I will say this, though. It's much harder to walk away from something that you know beyond a reasonable doubt is true. It's easy to walk away from something you've doubted your whole life. And by the way, it's really hard for the heart to rejoice in what the mind doubts. So you ought to have evidence for what you believe. The scriptures tell us this, and common sense tells us we ought to have evidence for what we believe. So what I want to do is give you some evidence. And by the way, these 3 lies that kids want to believe today, the reason kids want to believe them is because if they believe them, they're going to be in control of their lives. They think so anyway, and they're going to be really popular if they believe these things. The first lie that young people want to believe, and probably some older people too, is that I have my own truth. I can live however way I want because I'm the arbiter of truth. I'm the standard of truth. And this really is what has been the dominant philosophy in our culture. It's called postmodernism or relativism. And it's basically the view that there is no truth. Everybody makes up their own truth. Now, what I'm about to talk about in the next few minutes, I think is the most important thinking skill I've ever learned. And to show you what a dimwit I was 33 years old, I already had a master's degree, and I did not know what I'm about to tell you right now, this thinking skill, which is extremely important. And why didn't I know it? Because I never had a course in logic. How many people in here have ever had a course in logic? Can I see your hands, please? All right, see these people with their hands up? These are the homeschoolers. See them? Here they are. We don't teach logic in public school anymore. We should. Yep. Instead of teaching kids how to think, we're teaching them what to feel. And that's dangerous, because if you live your life by feelings without reason, you're going to wind up in a very dark place. Yes, emotion makes life fun, but logic makes life safe. And what we're going to talk about here is something called the law of non-contradiction. It's a fundamental law of logic. You all intuitively know it, but you may have forgotten you've known it. It goes like this. Opposite ideas cannot both be true at the same time and in the same sense. For example, we can't both be at Chino Hills and not at Chino Hills at the same time and in the same sense, right? It's one or the other. God can't both exist and not exist at the same time and in the same sense. It's one or the other. You with me? What we're going to do is apply this law of logic to some of these statements we hear in our culture today that support relativism and postmodernism, like this one: there is no truth. If someone were to say to you, there is no truth, you should ask that person a question. What should the question be? Yeah, is that true? Is it true that there's no truth? Because if it's true that there's no truth, the claim there is no truth can't be true, but it claims to be true. Did I say that right? Can everybody see that this is a self-defeating statement?
And this is actually something that a lot of people would have contradictions, because if somebody comes to you and just say, hey, I don't think that's true, like, well, like he says, like, is that true? My truth is simply, we can actually have, and this is coming from him also, and you can actually attest this, because everybody has their own truth, but there's only one truth. The truth is that God holds everything in truth. What that is if my moral standards are not based on what God's moral standards, then I'm going to go against God. We have to have these discussions with our kids. Why? Because it's important when they come to an age where they have the ability to reason all this stuff. They, at this point, how the school system is, they are going to be contaminated, indoctrinated in stuff that you are, like, as a dad, as a mom, you've been trying to fight and battle. And this is why it's so important. One of my first videos in this channel, I started talking about the importance of you not letting just a school Bible teacher teach your kids about the Bible and teach good morals to your kids. This has to be an ongoing walk, a daily walk with your kids. You cannot be that busy for your kids. You cannot be that busy for life. You cannot be that busy for the things you got to do as a parent, as a mom, because God has entrusted you with these kids, these lives. So what's more important than actually giving good morals, giving the life that God has for them? In that sense, in the Word of God is life, isn't it?
And if they are going there, you better prepare them. The second lie your kids want to believe is that love means approval.
This is something.
Why? Well, love means approval. They can approve of everybody, regardless of what they want to do.
Having issues with.
They don't have to stand for truth at all. It could be all about just acceptance. But that's not love, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, a number of years ago here at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, I did a sermon on Does Love Require Approval? I'm just going to summarize it. You can see the entire thing on the Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills website. But let me ask you a question this way. How many parents do we have in the room here? All right, how many former children do we have in the room here? Okay, good. That's all of us then. All right? Question. If your parents approved of everything you wanted to do when you were 13 years old, would they have been loving? No, of course not. Love doesn't mean approval. Love doesn't mean enabling people to do evil. Love means you're standing in the way of evil. If you approve of everything some kid wants to do, you're not loving, you're unloving, you're an enabler. In fact, in the passage that everybody reads at their wedding, but nobody obeys, 1 Corinthians 13, here's what Paul says about love. Love does not rejoice in wrongdoing. Love rejoices in the truth. Love always protects. Love always perseveres. You don't protect people when you're approving of the evil they're doing. You're doing the opposite. Knock it off.
Boo.
In fact, Jesus, who went to the cross for us, gave us one new command. You know what the one new command is? Here it is. He says, a new commandment I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. How did he love us? He sacrificed himself for us. So what is love for us? It means sacrifice. It doesn't mean approval. Do you know, when we fail to say what we know to be true because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, we're not really loving people. We're enabling them to do evil. And a lot of times we won't tell them the truth because we don't want them mad at us. And you know why we do that? Because we want to take the easy way. We will sacrifice them for our benefit rather than sacrificing ourselves for their benefit. That's what love is, to sacrifice yourself for the benefit of others. So you need to tell people what the truth is in as tactful a way as possible. Here's one way you could do it. You might say to somebody you love who, say, is wanting to approve of, say, aberrant sexual practices. They're all over now. You might say to them, hey, if I was about to go down a road you knew that would hurt me and hurt others and would be against God's will, would you love me enough to tell me? What's the other person going to say? Well, of course. Great. Can I do the same for you right now? The third lie your kids want to believe is that the Bible is a fairy tale. Why? Because if the Bible's a fairy tale, then again, they're the moral arbiter of their lives. They don't have to bow to God. They get to do their own thing. course, what they forget is the supreme advantage of the Bible being true, and that is you're going to know the God of the universe, the God who created you, and you're going to be in a state of bliss with him and your loved ones who have also accepted the invitation. Why wouldn't you want that to be true?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't. And what I want to do is spend a little bit of time why we know Jesus rose from the dead. Why? Because if Jesus rose from the dead, Christianity is true. And this is what we point out in the I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist book. I don't have time to go through all the argumentation here today, but let me just say this. A lot of people can't believe in a resurrection because they've never seen one. We cover all this in the book. But the resurrection is not the greatest miracle in the Bible.
Yep.
The greatest miracle in the Bible is the first verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If that verse is true, every other verse, including verses about a resurrection, are at least possible. You know the interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen? The interesting thing is that even atheists are admitting the evidence for the first verse. They're saying there was a beginning to the universe. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if space-time and matter had a beginning out of nothing, what could have caused that?
Creator.
It seems to me only a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause could have caused space, matter, and time to come into existence out of nothing. That sounds a lot like God. Look, if Genesis 1:1 is true, a resurrection like the resurrection of Jesus is possible. The only question we have now is what evidence do we have that it really did occur? And in the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, we have a chapter called The Top 10 Reasons We Know the New Testament Writers Are Telling the Truth. We don't have time for 10. I just want to give you 2. The first reason that I think we know beyond a reasonable doubt is they told the truth is that there is embarrassing stories in there that they never would have invented. You say, what is this about? Look, historians know that if there's something embarrassing to the author or authors in the text, it's probably true. Why? Because you're not going to invent details that embarrass you. You're not going to invent details that make you look bad. You might invent things that make you look good, right? But not bad. In fact, let me ask you guys a question. How many people in here have ever lied to make yourself look good? Look, if you don't have your hand up right now, you're lying to make yourself look good, and it's not working. We know you're lying.
No.
All right, how many people in here have ever lied to make yourself look bad? You don't do that. You might lie to make yourself look good, but you won't lie to embarrass yourself. Well, the New Testament writers have filled the New Testament with embarrassing stories and details they never would have invented. That's why we call this the duh factor. They're not making this up. Let me just give you a few of them. Peter, their leader, is called Satan by Jesus. Do you think they invented this? Do you think Peter or Mark, who wrote this down, at one point said to Peter, hey, Pete, I'm going to make this a real interesting story. I'm going to have the Lord call you Satan. What do you think Peter would have said? Have him call you Satan. This doesn't look good. I'm the leader here. And then Peter says, Lord, I'll never deny you. What does he wind up doing? He denies him 3 times. And then at the crucifixion, all the disciples, maybe with the exception of one, they all run away. This is like a Monty Python movie. Run away. And who are the brave ones? The women. That's right. Yeah. That's right, ladies. On Father's Day, I am woman. Hear me roar. You didn't run away like you sissy pants men did. Now, who wrote the New Testament documents down? Men. Now, what man is going to invent that he was hiding for fear of the Jews while the women went down and discovered the empty tomb? Would any man in here invent that? No, if I was making it up, I'd make myself look good, wouldn't you? I mean, I'd write down, let's see, we marched right down there and we overpowered that elite Roman guard. Yeah, that sounds pretty good, huh? John said, get out. Peter, roundhouse kicked him. Thomas said, we'll be back. No doubt. Some of you may get that tomorrow. And then on Sunday morning, we marched right down to the tomb, and we saw Jesus, who congratulated us on our great faith. And then we went and comforted the trembling women. I would never say it was Mr. Sissy Pants while the women went down and discovered the empty tomb. And oh, by the way, why would you never say the women were the first witnesses in that culture? I mean, forget about the fact it was embarrassing to men. It was. But independent of that, why would you never say the women were the first witnesses? Yes, because a woman's testimony in a court of law was not considered on par with that of a man. So you'd only have the men be the first witnesses. And all 4 Gospels say the women were the first witnesses, which is telling us what?
Ooh.
They were. In fact, one of the women was a formerly demon-possessed woman. Gee, what a credible witness you got there, huh? No, they're not making this up. They would never invent this. I had a lady come up to me once. She said, Frank, I know why Jesus appeared to the women first. I said, why? And she said, because he wanted to get the story out. I said, that is an excellent point. I had not thought of that. Because ladies, when your man comes home from work, does he say much?
Oh, really?
There could have been a nuclear explosion down at the plant. He's not going to tell you. You'll see it on the news before you hear it from him. You'll be watching the news going, Hey, hon, what? Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, yeah. The nuke blew up. I've been hot for 3 days. What's for dinner? He's not going to tell you. I was at the University of Cincinnati this past November, and some guy came up to me after the presentation. He said, you think that's bad? I know of a friend of mine who was on a plane, just he and a pilot, a private plane, and the pilot died. And this guy didn't know how to fly the plane. So just like in the movies, the tower talked him down. Well, that guy went home that night, and his wife said, how was your day, dear? And he said, same old, same old.
This is great. This is great. And that's what I love Frank about, how frank he is and how wonderful storyteller he is also. Much to learn from this guy, this amazing man. He has a master's in theology and stuff like that. Something that a lot of people will enjoy having him. And then one of the things that my favorite things he always says, he's always trying to prove that the gospel, and let me just go back to my window, the gospel is truth. The gospel today, and I'm gonna answer the question that somebody wrote to me this morning in Spanish in the Spanish channel. I can't believe that in 2024 we're still talking about God, and I was kind of like, that hurts. But at the same time, I just went back and I still cannot believe that it's still in 2024 people cannot believe about God when we have the evidence of the creation, when we need to have a creator in order to have all this stuff. And she didn't say anything. There was like two people answering back, which is, I'm not trying to, create controversy on this person. I just want him, I want to win him to believe, and I just want him to cause that. I want to cause that issue into them. Like, wait, why does she believe? And this is exactly why one of the things that I love is like the apostles are not going to look themselves bad. So how can we finish this video? I'm just going to finish this way. The evidence of the Bible, the evidence of the truth of God, it's here. There's evidence, there's physical evidence, there's historic evidence, and why somebody's going to lie to look themselves bad if it was not true. If somebody is doubting the Bible, is somebody, probably you've been in church for so many years, you're doubting the Bible, you're doubting your faith, probably because somebody did something wrong to you. Again, how are you going to doubt? Frank actually puts it this way. It's like, like you're driving a Ford car, and if something happened to the car, it's because the driver was not actually driving the car the way it was supposed to. So are you going to blame the car, or are you going to blame the driver? Of course, you got to blame the driver, because the driver is the one who was in control of this stuff. The brand doesn't have anything to be in this, but it was a good car, and it saved his life, to be honest with you. So, to just finish this, I just want to make sure you understand that God has a purpose for everybody, that God has a real life that you haven't experienced yet. And if you have not experienced that life, I invite you today to take matters into your own hands and say, I want to have Jesus in my heart today. I want to have Jesus in my life. I want to have Jesus in my home. For me and my house, we will serve the Lord in that sense, just like Joshua said. So I want to invite you to open the door to someone who probably you haven't even met yet. Probably you heard about him. Probably you heard about his wonders and miracles. But there's a miracle that is actually waiting to happen, that is to be born again. Something that happened to me when I was in my 20s. Even though I grew up in church, even though I heard about God, I didn't know Jesus the way that I know God and Jesus and his presence today. And I can tell you throughout trials and tribulations and life ups and downs, I can tell you this, God has given me the peace, and he has never failed me. There's always food in my home. There's always a home that I can actually sleep in. There's always a bed where I can actually rest and lay my head. There's nothing that God can do for you, but at the same time, God requires full devotion. And that's one of the things that we are missing in these days as parents, as kids of God, because if we don't have devotion for God, we cannot lay down and pass down that devotion so we can continue the lineage of believers on God. And that's why we fail as parents, or that's why we fail many times. And I've seen it so many times in my life around me with friends and family. So I just want to encourage you also to read your Bible. If you don't know where to start from the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, so you can actually start reading the Bible, reading the stories that actually gonna edify your life, and also they're gonna get you closer to God. So with this, I want to say bye to everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time, and I hope you get encouraged and be encouraged to see God in your life, because He is real. And enjoy your life. Right now, I'm gonna enjoy my kids. They're running all over the place. So I love this times. It's summer vacation, so let's enjoy it and just smile everywhere you go. So we'll see you next time. God bless you.